said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way, baby. We about to celebrate.
Welcome back to Great Lakes State Football. This is episode 11, the best podcast in the state of Michigan, talking every level of football. I'm Vince.
Kory.
I'm Brett.
We're going to open things up here with some high school football talk. We do have a guest. We're going to have him on a little bit later in the episode here, Mr. Mikey McKerr, Lansing Catholic grad from 2019 and currently playing offensive line at Northwood University. So we will have him on a little bit later. But before we get to him, we do have some topics we got to discuss. First off, high school football in the state of Michigan, MHSAA. A little local news here in mid-Michigan. Us being all from mid-Michigan, we always do like to highlight the greater Lansing area. Dansville just hired a new coach, Mr. Zach Mendez, a guy that we appreciate. Zach, he does show us love on Twitter, so we have been communicating with him a little bit. He is a Mason grad, young varsity head coach at 27 years old, will be leading the program after their previous coach, Jeff Graff, steps down after 4 seasons. So we wish the best of luck to Zach here leading the program. Next little bit of MHSAA news here. Adrian High School, their new varsity head coach, they hired an assistant from Saline, a Mr. Joel Przgotsky. Hope I said that right. Joel Przgotsky has been assistant coach at Saline, which has had a lot of success here in the state of Michigan at the Division I level. And now he will be leading Adrian High School as their varsity head coach. So we wish the best of luck to him and his endeavors.
Adrian's had some successful seasons here as of late too. So that's good to see. Also in high school football news, there was the Battle of Miami, the 7-on-7 tournament down in Miramar, Florida. More than 40 teams in the top 18U 7-on-7 clubs in the country traveled to South Florida to participate in this, as well as other age groups. I think I saw 12U, 14U, and some other things. But it was a giant 7-on-7 tournament with a ton of state of Michigan athletes in it. Just to name a couple, Dante Moore, quarterback at MLK, 5-star recruit, will probably end up being a top 5 overall high school recruit in the country. You got defensive back Amari Snowden from Roseville, and then wide receiver Samaje Morgan from West Bloomfield, who's currently a Michigan recruit, but who knows with Jim Harbaugh exiting the ranks. So
we'll get to that a little bit later.
Is that a foreshadow?
It's Vince's favorite thing. It was a giant 7-on-7 tournament. Vince, how do you feel about there being pretty much a national circuit for 7-on-7s? National. I mean, it is like scheduled out national.
No comment.
All right, there we go. One other thing that is not on our list on here, which I thought I had put on there, the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association has announced that they are looking at a women's flag football league in the spring. How do you guys feel about that?
I think it's awesome.
I mean, it's cool. I just don't know how much buy-in there's going to be. What season are they planning on playing?
This spring, like literally within a couple months.
Yeah,
I think it's very short notice.
I'm sure it'll probably be primarily cheerleaders. A lot of the most female athletes are either running track or playing softball at that time. So I think it's going to be cheerleaders that they cheer in the fall, they do their tumble in the winter, and they'll be playing some flag football here in the spring. It's going to make them all experts on the rules come next fall.
The only thing I would add is what about volleyball play? Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you. You got volleyball players and women play lacrosse in the fall too. So I think you could get women lacrosse players and volleyball players who like, hey, I'm going to try flag football. Yeah, I think you'd be surprised.
I think you don't make it super serious. I think you make it maybe practice twice a week. You play on Fridays or maybe even Saturday mornings. I think this truly is a gauge to see should they have women's football. Now, do I believe they should have women's football? I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's never been a thing. I do know, like, personally, my wife always says that she would have played football if it was a sport in high school. If they can get the numbers to have one team and you got to think they have field hockey, they have women's lacrosse. A lot of these sports aren't played at every high school. If you could get 100 women's football teams in the state within the next 5 years, I think it's a success.
Do you think it's a situation where this league becomes big high school teams only? I'll give you an example.
Yes.
We have high school rugby in the state of Michigan. People aren't aware of it because it's only the big high schools. Rockford has a men and
field
women's
hockey.
Yeah, they have a women's rugby team and a men's rugby team, but it's only the big high schools where there's like 2,000 to 3,000 students. Do you think that's a situation where this ends up being a thing at only major Division I high schools?
Yes, 100%. That's my thought.
It's hard to say. It just depends on where there's going to be numbers. I mean, realistically, you probably only need 16, 17 girls to come out and play. There's only 7 on the field at a time, but to practice efficiently, you want 14 people out there. I would think that you could recruit that many girls. I don't know how sustainable it is. It just depends on how fun they make it. If there's only 2 or 3 schools in the state, which there'll be more than that come out. If you're playing the same team every week, it will kind of get old. But I think it's a good start. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's where the biggest gap is going to be. Is they run into this problem in the west side of the state. My cousin actually plays field hockey for Rockford, and she plays like the same 5 schools. And then if she's not playing the same 5 schools over here on the west side of the state, she's playing like Brighton or somebody down in Detroit. Well, okay, to drive from Rockford to frickin' Brighton is 3 hours. Like it's not on a Thursday. It's not really practical to drive all the way to fucking Brighton.
It's a conversation we've had before that all the biggest high schools in the state are in the Detroit area or the greater Detroit Ann Arbor area. The majority of them are the Detroit Ann Arbor area. There's only like 7 or 8, maybe 10 if you go to Kalamazoo in terms of D1 schools that side of the state. The majority of them all exist in Detroit.
So it'll be, you got to start somewhere though. I think. Do I think they need to make women's football a thing? Not necessarily they need to. Do I think they should offer it? If they can get the turnout and they can get girls interested in it, then hell yeah, like let them play.
Coaching is going to be another thing.
Vince will be coaching 13-year-old girls linebackers. Read step attack.
Not currently on my horizon, but I guess we'll see what happens.
If it paid you $1,000, you would.
I get paid more to coach high school football than that. I don't know. Before we wrap up Michigan high school football talk, Brett is going to start us off with our inaugural fun fact of the week. Brett, take it away.
Yeah, I'll take it from here, Vince. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. So we implemented the suggestion at the end of our podcast, and we had some of our listeners recommend that it'd be cool if we had added some more segments to our channels, and one of which is the fact of the week. So the fact of the week that I've been working on all week is since 2010. This is a question for Kory and Vince, and I'll give you the answer after you guys both put your guess in. Since 2010, which collegiate or professional sports teams, we all know it's not the Lions, but which collegiate program in the state of Michigan since 2010 has the best winning percentage? Now, since 2010, I know a lot of different schools play and levels play different amounts of games. So I'm going purely off of winning percentage since 2010. That's junior college, NAIA, D3, D2, D1. Which school has the best winning percentage?
Wisconsin Whitewater.
No, in the state of Michigan.
State of Michigan, jackass.
Oh, sorry.
Ferris State University.
I'm going to say any sport, any school.
We're talking about football.
Just football.
Collegiate football.
Jesus Christ, how drunk are you?
Kory thinks we're in Wisconsin.
What is going on over in Belmont, Michigan over there? What is wrong with you?
They do have a lot of lead in their water, or PFAS in their water.
Collegiate football in Michigan, Kory.
I am gonna say,
I feel I guess Ferris State, and I feel like I'm wrong though. I feel like I'm wrong.
You are wrong. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna say Grand Valley State.
You guys are both wrong.
Is it Michigan State?
It's a trick question. The answer is Grand Rapids Community College. So Grand Rapids Community College, they had their program got discontinued for a number of reasons. Their last coach was Tony Anise, who's now at Ferris State, but they had two seasons since 2010, and they had fall 2010 and also fall 2011. And during that stint, they went 10-2 in 2010 and 11-0 in 2011. So that's a 91% winning percentage. So I had a feeling you guys would get it wrong. And
unfortunately, Ferris State number 2?
Ferris State is number 2.
Oh, okay.
Grand Valley is number 3. And unfortunately, Vince is unable to allow me to share this, but I put together an entire chart with all the teams, collegiate teams in Michigan, and the winning percentage. And it's very interesting to look at. I'll make sure that we post this off of our Twitter.
How am I unable to allow you to what are you talking about? Unable to allow you to share this?
Like in the Zoom. In the Zoom. I can't share it in Zoom.
Yes, you can. You can put it on the screen.
No, I can't. It says host disabled. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
We will email it to
There you go. Share it right now. Share it right now. Share it right now. Share it right now.
Oh my God.
I spent a lot of time putting this together.
All right. If you're watching on YouTube, Brett is sharing it right now.
And so it's all in alphabetical order. We have teams from Adrian all the way to Western Michigan.
Holy shit. You spent a lot of time.
I told you I did. One thing, and you can sort it by Division II. I'll send you guys a link. We'll post it to Twitter. Take a look. Let us know your thoughts. But it's interesting. I didn't realize how many teams either started or stopped playing football during that period of time. You have Davenport starting in 2016, Finlandia and Hancock just across the river from Michigan Tech. They started in 2015. It was their first season. Grand Rapids Community College, the highest winning percentage during that period of time, ended in 2011. We had Lawrence Tech and Madonna, part of the NAIA, starting in 2017 and 2020, respectively.
Let's look at the Lions.
Siena Heights starting. And the Detroit Lions, they have a 41% winning percentage. They are 80 and 114 in that time.
Hey, they're better than Eastern Michigan.
They are better than Eastern, and everyone is just about better than Finlandia. Finlandia has not won a game since 2017.
I thought that was a typo. 0.009. Oh, no.
Blake Simon has cousins that go to Finlandia.
So speaking of Blake Simon, hailing from Kalamazoo College, they have a 33% winning percentage in that era. So it's a fun list. So look at it, take a look. I'm not a stat nerd because I don't like stats, but I appreciate history, and it's interesting to see these trends. So
fun fact about Kalamazoo College is that they got banned from the NCAA tournament in Division III for 2 years for cheating.
Well, I think that all of Brett's work, we're going to definitely have to make sure that we put this into our Twitter and Instagram. We're going to have to put this on some posts. We're going to stop sharing it for now. We're going to move. Sorry, Brett.
We need to make an OnlyFans and post that to it. We would get money on that.
Great fun fact of the week. A lot of research done there, and we definitely have to reward that research for Brett and share it on Instagram and Twitter. So that will be out in addition to this episode. But let's move on here. Keep this moving right along with some Division II football news. I'm going to talk about Grand Valley and Ferris State, but first, got to mention my alma mater, Hillsdale College, had their second player of the 2021 season named to an All-American team. Jack Shannon, who is a punter, and actually he is the first punter in 129 years of college football for Hillsdale to be named an All-American, and only the second ever special teams player after the infamous, very, very talented Chester Markle, who was drafted by the Green Bay Packers back in the 1970s, 1960s from Hillsdale. So he was the only other special teams player in Hillsdale history to be named an All-American. He was honorable mention by the Don Hanson NCAA D2 All-America team. Don Hanson's NCAA All-America team tends to focus on small college football. And he did name a couple other state of Michigan players in addition to Jack Shannon. He named Pasquale from Ferris State, who we've talked about on here before. Very talented player, Dylan Pasquale, offensive lineman for Ferris State. In addition, he also named a player from Saginaw Valley, Nick Whiteside, second team defensive back. And then there were several all honorable mention players as well on the list from Grand Valley and a couple other schools in the GMAC and the GLIAC. So that list you can check out online. So pretty cool. Moving on, Grand Valley State here. Brett's going to talk a little bit about Grand Valley State.
Yes, moving on to Grand Valley State. It's that time of year. Schools are starting to finalize their 2022 football schedules. The real struggle that's going on in the GLIAC right now, as we know, our numbers are becoming low, especially now with the exit of Northwood. So that leaves 7 teams left in the GLIAC, meaning there'll be 6 conference games for each team out of an 11-game schedule. So Grand Valley having to find 5 non-conference games. They're playing 4 non-conference teams. And by the teams that they picked, they're definitely not any cupcakes by any means. So they picked up Colorado School of the Mines for the open with on the opening day of September. Colorado State Pueblo, Lincoln out of California, and American International in Massachusetts. And another interesting note is they will play Wayne State twice this year. There's been a trend in the GLIAC, some teams playing conference opponent twice just because of the struggle with the schedule. So we've talked about the status of the GLIAC before. It'll be interesting to see how that trends over the next couple of years. I'm not sure how the players would feel about playing a team twice, especially Grand Valley playing a team like Wayne State. They say it's hard to beat a team twice, and Wayne State traditionally has had a pretty solid team. They've been down a couple of years, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be an easy win, especially when you got to play them twice. Schedules are being finalized, and Grand Valley's is currently final.
I would never want to play any GLIAC school twice. It sounds terrible.
So Grand Valley, actually, it's funny you bring this up. Grand Valley did this last fall. Grand Valley played Michigan Tech twice, which is a very challenging home and away schedule. So they played Michigan Tech, their 4th game of the year, and it counted as a non-conference matchup. And they played them at home and crushed them, 44-21. Their 3rd to final game of the year, they went up to Michigan Tech and only beat them 14-9. These guys could probably agree with me. If you've ever traveled up to Michigan Tech, especially as a football team, it is one of the hardest places to play. It's outdoors at Hillsdale. We played Michigan Tech in November.
It's a long walk.
It is a long, it's a long, the locker rooms up to the stadium is a long walk. It is a tough environment to play. I mean, we had snow in the end zones, plowed into both end zones when I played up there. So, Grand Valley playing Wayne State twice, with one of them counting as a non-conference, will be interesting. I'm more interested by the fact that they're playing 2 Colorado teams, CSU Pueblo and Colorado School of the Mines. Colorado School of the Mines was in the semifinals. Got beat by Valdosta State, who Ferris State beat this last year. And CSU Pueblo is also a storied program. They did not have a very good season this last year. And Grand Valley played CSU Pueblo, their 2nd game of the year, actually, this past season, and beat them 34-14. But before the last couple seasons, CSU Pueblo had won 11 or more games in 8 of their previous 10 seasons. So, they're a really good program, those 2 Colorado schools. So really impressive schedule here for Grand Valley to open up the season.
So if they're playing Wayne State twice, do you have to declare which game is counting towards your conference?
So it's funny
Northwood did it this year.
It's funny you mentioned this, because my freshman year at Hillsdale, we actually opened up the season with Ferris State, and it counted as a non-conference game. So I think essentially what the GLIAC does is they recognize the first game or 2. What at the time it was the first game of the season when I was there in 2011. That first game was a non-conference game. The other 10 games were conference games as we're we already talked with Mikey, but it's going to come later in this episode. The GLIAC had so many teams at the time, we only played one non-conference game. Now in the GLIAC, I think basically what they do is they say the first 4 or next year 5 games technically count as non-conference games. So if you play a GLIAC school in that time span, it doesn't count towards your conference record, which is interesting.
Yeah, Northwood played Northern Michigan twice this year. So
It'd be,
with only.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with only 7 teams in the conference moving forward, or 7 teams, they're going to have to play 5 non-conference games, 5 non.
Yeah, with only 6
games, 5.
Yeah, if you're one of 7 teams, you have 6 opponents, and you're going to end up playing one of those guys twice, or you pull a Ferris State and Grant. I don't know if Grand Valley did, but Ferris State only played 10 games last year. They had a bye week, so maybe you do that. Maybe you have a bye week. Maybe they play 10 games.
The Detroit Lions should take notes on that and may only make their first games against the NFC North count.
We're going to wrap up D2 talk here and just mention really briefly that speaking of non-conference games for the GLIAC next year, Ferris State announced a very high-profile non-conference game. They will be playing Lenore-Rhine this fall. Lenore-Rhine is notoriously maybe not a powerhouse in the sense of Valdosta State or Northwest Missouri State, but they are essentially a playoff team pretty much every single year. So it'll be interesting to see that non-conference matchup with two of the really best programs in the country in Division II. We're going to move on to Division I football here. MAC football talk to start. A few notes that we're going to mention before we get into a couple topics that we'll talk about. Central Michigan University adding Pitt to their schedule in 2025 and Miami in 2026. Some noteworthy non-conference matchups. Wide receiver Khalil Pimpleton from Central Michigan participated in the 2022 NFLPA Collegiate Bowl this past Saturday. Unfortunately, statistics are not available, but he was a member of that bowl game. Western Michigan, couple notes. Jeff Thorne was named the new offensive coordinator. His son is famously Peyton Thorne, Michigan State's quarterback. Also, Western Michigan's offensive lineman Mike Caliendo participated in the 2022 NFLPA Collegiate Bowl as well, which was last Saturday. Some also great hard-hitting news here. Eastern Michigan still has a gray field, so I thought we'd mention that. And with that, we're going to wrap up MAC football talk, and we're going to move into Big Ten. Hard. Kory's about to pee his pants over there.
And Vince said, you said gray field, not great. It is gray.
You just said it so
Kory's going to piss his pants.
All right,
we're going to move on to Big Ten football. We're going to start with the University of Michigan. Big time news today. Fellow co-hosts, Harbaugh, which last we checked, is it official yet? Last we checked,
official. No,
tomorrow. It's not official. What are we thinking here? It looks like it's damn near official that Harbaugh is going to be leaving. Thoughts on this?
Heartbreak. It's not the end of the world. Just mine's quick, Brett, but it's not the end of the world. It's upsetting though, because for me personally, I like stability. I don't know. I don't want to have to go through trying to create this again. So
it's definitely heartbreaking, and I too like stability, but unfortunately in today's college football landscape, stability is pretty much non-existent unless you're Alabama. I mean, you think about some of the perennial powers recently in college football, like Clemson, they just lost their DC to go to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma lost their head coach to USC. I mean, nothing is ever promised. And I think 7 years, I mean, Harbaugh's here for 7 years, 7 seasons. He came here and he accomplished exactly what he wanted to do and what Michigan fans wanted. They wanted to get the program back on track. He probably peaked. I mean, in that playoff game against Georgia, he's probably thinking, I'm never going to beat this team. Like, what am I going to do? I mean, why don't I just go back to the NFL? I don't have to deal with all of the college BS. I'll get paid well. It's I wouldn't say it. I guess it is heartbreaking, but it's not. I'm kind of happy for him too. I mean, he did what he wanted to do. He was back against the wall last year, and I give him a lot of credit for coming back. And quite frankly, I'd probably want to move on too if I was him. He did what he came here he accomplished what he came here for. And I think that there's a lot of rumors about potential head coaches, but the way Michigan's program is right now and the way they left off last year, I mean, when was the last time, if it's ever happened, a college football team made the college football playoff and their coach just left? I mean, normally the coach is coming back to continue to build the dynasty.
Yep.
So it's a kind of a unique situation. And I think that for Michigan, they're in a great situation. The key that you want to do is retain as many players as possible. Obviously, it's not ideal with National Signing Day tomorrow, but I think there's a lot of rumors out there on different coaches. But personally, I think they hire someone that's in the staff. They know the culture. They know the players. Being somewhat late in the offseason, I mean, if a bunch of players hit the portal, there's not a whole lot of players left in the portal to bring in, at least high quality players. A lot of those guys have signed and they're already at their school so they can participate in spring ball and are in the starting spots for next fall. So personally, I'd like to see him promote an internal guy. The first people that come to mind are Josh Gaddis and Mike Hart, neither of which have had coaching experience, but I think they're both ready. And Coach Harbaugh has done a phenomenal job of grooming young coaches in their career, and they're mostly successful in their next stop. So as sad as it is to see, I'm excited too. And another thing, if we hire somebody internally, like Kory said, maybe it'll offer some sort of stability. I mean, if you get a guy that hasn't been a head coach before, he's going to want to stay at Michigan for a while, and he probably won't leave unless the NFL comes knocking. Michigan's a program like that where you don't leave Michigan on your own terms to go coach another college program. So we'll see what the next week or so holds. I'd imagine that they try to get somebody. I'm sure that they have some guys in mind, and they're probably on the phone right now setting up interviews. So we'll see what happens.
I agree with you, Brett. I would say you got to go with Gaddis. I don't know about Mike Hart. He just rubs me the wrong way. He was a college running back, but he looks like a college 3 technique. I'm sure he can chop it up with the best of them, and he's a good coach, but I don't know. I don't have a good vibe from him. Guys to keep on the radar, Matt Rule, the ex-coach at the Panthers. They say Michigan might go after him. Matt Campbell for the Illinois
State.
Illinois State.
Iowa
State Cyclones. Sorry. And then Dave Aranda, the Baylor coach, who has some pretty deep ties in the football community. He did great things at Baylor, Brett. How do you feel about him?
If Michigan was going to hire from the outside in, I really like Dave Aranda. You know, he's coached in the Midwest. He was a defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, and he actually was down in LSU and was a defensive coordinator for that national championship LSU team prior to taking the head coaching job at Baylor, which he's done a phenomenal job at Baylor. That program was on the ropes with allegations when he took it over. So he's done a nice job there. Another name that's come to mind on a lot of people is Bill O'Brien, former Penn State coach, Houston Texan coach. He's coaching offense at Alabama right now. I'm not really too high on him. I think he's going to try and change too much. You got to, at this point, you have enough strong minds internally. I think you hire internal, and then you got to make a splash hire for the defensive coordinator, kind of leading into our next point with Mike McDonald leaving. We had some candidates in mind, but now that there's going to be a new head coach, it's going to be a slew of different candidates. And I still think that, I mean, Harbaugh ultimately is a good person, and I think that he's still going to be available to kind of reach out to and bounce some ideas off of some good coaching candidates. I'm sure he's going to help the program out. It's not going to hurt him at all. He's out of the college ranks now.
And it'll be interesting to see. It was big back in, I would say, the early 2010s. These coaches would come in and they'd bring in a completely different staff. And I don't necessarily think you see that anymore. I think they interview their staff. I think they handpick certain positions, but it's not like it used to be where it was literally like if a new head coach was coming in, it was see you later, and here's my whole staff just transferred in. So
yeah, it certainly depends on the situation. I mean, when Mel Tucker came to Michigan State, I think there's only 1 or 2 staffers from D'Antonio that remained in East Lansing. But if you look at Ohio State, for example, when Urban Meyer left and Ryan Day was promoted, they pretty much kept that whole staff intact, and they promoted internally. So I think Ohio State's a great example. You can promote a young guy that's been in the program for a couple of years, even though he hasn't been a head coach. He knows how the program is run. And like Harbaugh kind of shaded at Ryan Day. Some people, after the Michigan Ohio State game, he said some people are born on third thinking they hit a triple. Well, if Michigan were to hire internally, their coach is essentially going to be on third, and he didn't hit a triple. So that's where the program's at right now. It's going to be fun to follow. We'll see what happens. I guess my only request with the next coach is, I mean, it really doesn't matter in the big scheme of things, but from a fan, it's nice to get some sort of intel. And Harbaugh's been so tight-lipped, you never know what the heck's going on. But number one, you got to keep JJ McCarthy in the program and retain as many of those young guys you can. Donovan Edwards, and there's a slew of others too.
Vince is going to laugh. I could see him half laughing. But no, I'm reading this book right now, Good to Great by Jim Collins. And it is about actually companies who go from good to great, and how they get there is actually from internal promotion. So hopefully Michigan follows that trend. That's all I got.
Is that your recommendation of the week?
That is not. I'm not there yet.
Moving on to Michigan State. Vince, what you got?
Well, MSU, we talked about this last week. Some pretty crazy movements here in the transfer portal. We mentioned in a previous episode, and I specifically mentioned, and after I think Kory asked me as an MSU fan, my concern with the transfer portal. Mel is continuing to hit this thing hard, man. Some other high-profile news for MSU from the transfer portal. First here, transfer running back. Jarek, I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Broussard from Colorado, Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, who formerly played for Mel Tucker when he was at Colorado. This running back, really good running back, has announced that he's committing to Michigan State, which is noteworthy because MSU announced Jalen Berger, a stud running back freshman from Wisconsin, was transferring as well. And they already have Jordan Simmons and Eli Collins, who have had experience in carries. It's going to be interesting to see all of these running backs who kind of takes, and this is something we talked about last week. It creates competition, but over time, what's the sustainability with this? Are you going to start to upset people and turn people away? Or is this going to be a culture that gets bred to a point where, like, maybe to encourage this iron sharpens iron theory? Brett kind of brought that quote up last week. It'll be interesting to see, going forward with some of these high profile recruits.
They have 2 starting running backs on their roster right now. Both guys want carries. You're going to lose one.
Yeah, I will say though.
So yeah,
I mean,
one's not going to stay. Yeah, someone's going to leave.
Yeah.
What it does is it weeds out the softies in your program. I mean, if you got a kid in there that doesn't want to work hard, let him go. I mean, you're going to keep these guys in there that are going to be horses and make each other better. So I can see both sides of it. I can see it being a good thing and a bad thing. I'm leaning towards a good thing initially, but we'll see how 22 pans out.
We'll see.
I touched on it last week though. If you're a freshman coming in, a highly touted freshman, you're going to be like, why the fuck am I going to go here? When they just brought in a guy who was really good at Wisconsin and a guy who's even better at Colorado. Like,
yeah, it's not like those guys are freshmen though. Those guys will probably graduate by the time you're just finish up your sophomore year. They probably have, 2 years left each. So there's opportunities still, but you don't get the early taste of starting and fame.
You ain't playing. You ain't a 4-year starter.
Another member of a player from the transfer portal who is now going to be at Michigan State is a tight end, Daniel Barker from Illinois, a 3-star prospect out of Florida in the 2018 class. He played at Illinois for 4 years. This is a big dude, 6'4", 230 pounds, 44 career games at Illinois. His career, 64 catches, 827 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He has 1 year of eligibility left. So it sounds like he is kind of a grad transfer. They're not calling him a grad transfer. They're just saying he has another year of eligibility because of the COVID rule. I'm assuming he already has his undergrad, though. I would hope after 4 years he has his undergrad degree. Continuing on, another high-profile recruit is Caleb Elam. Caleb Elam is pursuing a walk-on opportunity at Michigan State, and this is a guy who is from East Lansing. He was a East Lansing 2019 grad who played and signed at Davenport. So he is transferring up. and he will be a preferred walk-on at defensive back. So this is a transfer, that maybe is, going to be working his ass off. It's not necessarily one who's going to, come in and play right away. And then some final transfer news here. We mentioned Ma Gauteote, which I hope I said his name right, who is a top 2021 recruit. Originally was announced he was going to the transfer portal, is withdrawing. So stud freshman linebacker at Michigan State will be remaining at MSU for the time being. As we've mentioned before, this transfer portal process is quite fickle, so who knows? Going to move on here, keep this moving right along to Detroit Lions news. NFL news, Brian Flores is suing the NFL. Do you guys have anything to add with this?
Yeah, so Brian Flores was the coach for the Miami Dolphins, who actually finished with a winning record in Miami. And he had back-to-back over 500 seasons, so it was successful. Pretty much just coming out saying the Rooney Rule's BS, and that the teams that he's interviewed with haven't really given him the time of day. He gives some specific examples in his press release on this, but it's messy for the NFL, and the NFL just released a statement pretty much saying like none of this is warranted and that what he's stating is not true. And all this, like the NFL followed up his response with the lawsuit in like 2 hours, was like, this is bullshit, which is pretty ballsy for the NFL to come out and say, considering they only gave it about 2 hours of research to say that. So pretty interesting. We'll see how the NFL pans out. They continue to be probably one of the most powerful brands in the world. So we'll see.
I find it interesting. Who am I to speak? I'm just some Caucasian kid from West Michigan. I work a desk job.
From mid-Michigan. Live in West Michigan.
I've lived in West Michigan a third of my life. But yeah, I guess my roots are in mid-Michigan.
That's crazy. It's been 10 years.
I know. But I just, I don't know what happened in the conversation. He's been in the league. I'm sure something must have tipped him off to irritate him enough to bring it to light. But this is when I said, who am I to say it? Personally, I don't think the NFL is a racist league, especially a league that's run primarily off of minorities. I'm just pulling this number out of my pocket, but I would guess at least 80% of the NFL is a minority. And there's a bunch of other coaches, not so much head coaches, but there's a lot of assistant coaches that are also of color. But the NFL is a business, and I think as an owner, they want to hire who's the best fit for their club. And I don't think that in 2022 that color is so much of a barrier anymore to who gets a job and who doesn't. I mean, Mike Tomlin is an example. He's a great coach. I think he's the longest tenured coach in the NFL. And being black, I think that's great. But it's hard for me to take a stance on if what Brian Flores is saying is true, just because there's so much opportunity. And it's a cutthroat. I mean, when you're becoming an NFL coach, that's saying that you are the top 32 best person in the world at what you do. So it's cutthroat. And I don't think there's any discrimination that goes on. Obviously there's certain instances, but.
So I would like to argue the opposite. I think that there's a lot of discrimination in the league. One thing that I bring up is the NFL made the Rooney Rule to protect themselves. For the fact that they felt like they had to make that rule is kind of unbelievable to me, just being in the landscape of the world that we're in. I don't think that that shouldn't be a thing anymore. I mean, for the NFL to think that they have to create this rule to protect themselves is absolutely unbelievable to me. Because first off, I'm just like Brett. I'm a kid from mid-Michigan. I live in West Michigan. I've had a good life. But the fact that he even feels like he's being discriminated against is a shame. For me, is a shame on the NFL. That he shouldn't feel that way. So I just don't really understand. I would have to research a little bit more, but.
So the Rooney Rule probably could trickle into how he's feeling, but ultimately the owner is going to hire who's best fit for the job. It doesn't matter what you look like, smell like, or shape like. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to make money and they're going to hire who's the best. And
I agree, but why does he feel this way then?
it's probably, I think the Rooney Rule is an example of that because they felt
Yeah.
like they had to bring somebody in. But I don't think that NFL is racist. I just think that maybe it's maybe the rule just needs to be reevaluated.
There needs to be no rule, and that people shouldn't we need to fix things so people don't feel this way. That's the moral of the story.
Right.
Nobody should feel like they're being discriminated against, and that's on the NFL for letting somebody feel like they're being discriminated against.
It's certainly a touchy subject, but nonetheless it needs to be reevaluated. But at the end of the day, they're going to hire who's the best fit for a coach. And honestly, if I was Brian Flores, I wouldn't want to go coach the New York Giants either. So screw him.
He had the biggest issues with, I think it was Denver, and there's a couple other teams that he had some problems with.
Hey, at least he didn't cite the Detroit Lions.
Very true. Very true.
Because the Lions win a game.
The Lions did not win a game this week, but speaking of the Lions, we'd like to just briefly touch on here. Cincinnati going to the Super Bowl. Is this hope for the Lions? As we mentioned a couple weeks ago, with Cincinnati winning their first playoff game in the wild card round, it officially made the Lions the owner of the longest postseason winning drought in all professional North American sports. So does Cincinnati making it all the way to the Super Bowl give the Lions hope, gentlemen?
Yes.
I would say yes to show.
That's the optimist in Kory speaking.
Joe Burrow is a once in a decade talent. I mean, the guy's got so much swag. I look at him and I just think, you are so cool. You are so cool. Like, in a good way. The guy, he puts the beat
Joey
to the
Ice.
drum. Yes.
Joey Ice.
Yes. Guy's got swag. But nonetheless, of Joe Burrow, obviously the quarterback, there's hardly, aside from Jared Goff has been to the Super Bowl, but he's not the caliber of Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow's also got a lot of weapons, and he's got a pretty decent backfield too. And I think that the hope it gives the Lions is that it can be done if the right moves are made. And I think the Lions are making the right moves. The Bengals were a worse team in 2019 than the Lions were in 2021. I can guarantee that. So it gives us more optimism, which is probably a bad thing. But nonetheless, I'm saying there's a chance.
We're going to need a DC here soon, so it is what it is.
The last topic we're going to move into here before we get to our guest is kind of what, I don't know about you guys, this wasn't really on my radar. I wasn't really paying attention to this, and that is the United States Football League is officially, the USFL, officially starting back up this year, starting in April. And they are bringing back the Michigan Panthers, a team that played back in the 80s at the Pontiac Silverdome, which is, something that we were not around for, unfortunately, but some people are very excited about. In 1983, they actually won the USFL championship. Unfortunately, at this time, this startup season, all 8 teams that are being brought back, including the Michigan Panthers, their games will be played solely in Birmingham, Alabama. So at this time, when I saw this news, I was like, extra football in Michigan, but it's not going to be played here. So what are we thinking about this, gentlemen? I have some hope for the future that maybe eventually we'll get some minor league football here if there is some success, but I don't know.
To date myself, I was the T-boy for the Lions-Bears game at the Silverdome. I got to run onto the field and grab the tee. I have a picture in my basement. But anyway, it's kind of cool. Jeff Fisher, longtime Tennessee Titans coach, famous for losing the Super Bowl at the 1-yard line versus the Rams. I think it's super cool. I mean, it's shitty that they're the Michigan Panthers, but they're not playing in Michigan, which is stupid. Then
none of these teams are going to play in their states, even whatever they're named after. Yeah,
that's kind of stupid. That gives it no point. So that's dumb. But good luck to everybody who makes a roster for the USFL. Maybe I'll come out of retirement. Who fucking knows?
I
You're gonna hear
think
first.
I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. These minor league football programs that get started up never really seem to stick. I mean, this league didn't stick when it started back in the 80s. It's just, the NFL is such a strong brand that's what everyone compares it to. And it's unfortunate. The only positive it has going for it is that it's played in the spring. There's not a lot of competition with football. Really all you're competing with is the NFL draft at that point in time. It's after college basketball, and college or MLB is just picking up. And
there's not much going on. Yeah.
The NBA playoffs are just starting to kick off too, but there's not a lot going on at that time. But the league is owned by Fox Sports, so they're going to be nationally televised on both Fox and NBC, which will make it easily accessible. But like you said, I mean, it's kind of weird that you got a team from Michigan that will never play a game in Michigan. It's almost like a satellite team in a way.
Yeah, it's
so
like redundant.
You don't really feel the connection to the team. My understanding is the guys that will be playing in that all are within the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association. So they're all higher quality guys that are borderline NFL player, like fringe players, whether practice squad or not. It'll be interesting to see if NFL allows guys that are on their futures reserve roster, like we had talked about last week, to play for these teams, even though they're technically under contract by the NFL team. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. But nonetheless, it's always fun to see new football. And the fact that Michigan is able to house a team makes it more interesting with Jeff Fisher, a well-known coach. So it'll be fun.
An NFL G League would 100% be hype.
This is a topic that I would love to have an episode discussion on. We've had so many leagues, even in recent years, but just in the past, that have failed. And I don't understand, because every other professional sports organization in this country has minor leagues. And I think the biggest problem with football is the NFL, I don't know if they refuse to partner with a minor league or if it's like they haven't found common ground, but like the NBA is a minor league, NHL is a minor league, MLS is a minor league, MLB is a minor league. Everyone else has these minor leagues. Why can't the NFL figure out how to work with another organization and have players be two-way players? And then you have so many more opportunities for fans to enjoy the sport, for players to continue their career. I mean, I think of the Alliance of American Football, the AAF, that was bankrupt, before their season even finished in 2019. Yeah, they didn't even finish the 2019 season. I was so excited about that. So I'm, fingers crossed that this league works. I know The Rock is trying to get the XFL started back up again, apparently in 2023. I would love to see a minor league football league be successful.
I think the biggest.
Go ahead, Kory. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm having a brain fart. I think the biggest thing you would see is you have the NFL, which is probably the most physically demanding, injury prone sport. So having a G League or a D League where somebody could go up and down all the time would really help the rosters. Instead of having these practice squads with just random guys, field 25 guys and have a G League team, or 30 guys and have a G League team, or in this case, 38 man roster, and have them play down, and then they'll play up, and then you can play other D League teams. They could play on Fridays, so that way you could have football Friday, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and yeah,
100%.
The problem with the NFL compared to other professional sports is it is such a physical game that your body can't play 2 football games in 1 week. Yeah, and there's you both know there's so much that goes into game planning for an NFL game, and it's a lot more intensive than other sports like basketball and hockey and baseball as far as your weekly game plans, that you can't play in a game on a Friday and turn around and play on a Sunday. And that's what the teams use the minor leagues for, is if they have an injury on a Tuesday, well, let this guy finish up his minor league game on Tuesday and he's going to come play for the Tigers on Thursday. It's just, that's the reason what it's for. And that's why the NFL has a practice squad. The NBA doesn't have a practice squad. The MLB doesn't have a practice squad. Hockey doesn't have a practice squad. It's because your body just can't take that much game contact in 1 week. And quite frankly, the NFL doesn't need it. If it's not broke, don't fix it type of thing. But what the USFL will do is it'll give these guys that won't have game exposure, and it'll give them an opportunity to showcase their skills, whether they got injured or whether they're just never given a chance. So we'll see what happens.
The only thing I would add, I agree with that. 100% agree with you. You are dead nuts correct, right, on everything you said. But what do you think about the feasibility of like a properly run, organized league, minor league, that is also supported by the NFL, that maybe isn't run at the same time? I'm glad you brought up the fact that these other organizations, their minor leagues are run at the same time. If the USFL or any other sort of organization is run at a different part of the year, but continues to be connected with the NFL, supported by the NFL, so that these players who maybe didn't play during the NFL season, but like you said, get national attention, are competitive, are showing their talents off. But the NFL can be like in the offseason, ooh, this guy's playing well. We're gonna bring him in, for the next season. And
you could train them during camp, like you could have them be readily accessible.
And I just think as a fan, I'm just thinking as a fan, like how much fun it would be to think of, like, I don't know, 24 teams. I don't know, maybe not 32 teams, but however many teams around the country. I would love to have one in Michigan. The opportunity to go watch just another sports team, another football team play. Like go to some, we go to Lansing Lugnuts games here, minor league baseball in Lansing, in Michigan, or you guys can go to, the Whitecaps in Grand Rapids. How much fun it would be to see the Michigan Panthers, just in the spring or in the summer, go play football. No one else is playing football, but I can go to a Michigan Panthers game for $20 or whatever, somewhere, in Detroit or wherever the game is. I just think it's fun.
Bring back the Grand Rapids Stampede.
Yeah.
It is fun. There's been so many leagues. You never really see a guy that does well in one league make it up to the pros. There's some examples, like Taylor Heineke is the first name that comes to mind. Kurt Warner, starting quarterback, or Heineke, the starting quarterback for the Redskins. He was in the XFL for a stint in 2020 before it fell apart. But he never played, but he still was getting snaps. And I'm sure he had some practice tape, but I don't know. I just don't see it working out. And I don't see the NFL really wanting to participate in that, to be completely honest. That's why they don't want to be affiliated with it.
Yeah. Well,
and honestly, another thing too, is the NFL would probably feel obligated to fund it, and they'd probably lose a lot of money. One of the reasons why these leagues go belly up is because they just don't have the funding, and the NFL doesn't want to lose a lot of money. It's a business.
But the NFL makes so much fucking money.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Money.
It doesn't matter. They're business people. They're greedy. They don't care.
That's true. You're right.
If it doesn't make money, it's not worth their time.
No, I know. You're right, but they make so much. All right, to kind of wrap things up here, before we get into our guest, do you guys have anything else you want to add?
Good luck to all the players, high school recruits tomorrow, looking to sign their national letters of intent. It's a exciting day for them. They've earned it, and I wish them the best. Coming from somebody that didn't finish out their college football career, it still was a big part of my life, and I'll never forget it to this day. So good luck to them. You earned it. Best of luck in the future.
Well, all right. We're going to move into the second part of our podcast here with our guest, Mr. Mikey McKerr, talking about Lansing Catholic football and Northwood football, his experience. He is currently playing at Northwood University. Thank you for listening to this first portion. Hope you enjoy the interview. And yeah.
Go Panthers.
All right, we're going to go ahead and segue here into the second part of the podcast with our guest, Mr. Mikey McKerr. We have Mikey on from Northwood University. He's a 2019 Lansing Catholic grad. We're in his senior year. He was an all-conference, all-area, LSJ Dream Team, and all-state selection. He signed his letter of intent after a few D2 offers to go to Northwood and play offensive line. Mikey, how you doing, man?
Good. How about you guys? Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're doing great, man.
We're good.
We're doing great. Doing real good.
As we talked about, I'm a teacher, and we're off from work tomorrow already, so we're ready to talk about some football and have a good time, man.
Sounds good.
Mikey's also my, I guess you'd call it, cousin-in-law. Not by his choice, married his cousin, married into his family. So, I'm sure he holds that against me. But anyway, we're gonna have a good time tonight. That's all that matters.
Yep.
So we're gonna start here, Mike. We want to talk to you a little bit about your time playing in high school. Obviously, playing at Lansing Catholic, pretty high-profile program here in the Mid-Michigan area. Especially in the last 5 seasons or so. Obviously, Lansing Catholic had success, before the previous, 5 to 10 seasons. But they did have a stretch in the 90s and 2000s where they kind of struggled for a while. And I know you probably agree with me. My father-in-law and your Uncle John, who went to Lansing Catholic, would talk about how in the 80s, back in the 80s, they went undefeated, won a state title, had some big playoff runs. And now they're kind of back on this trend. What would you credit Lansing Catholic's success to? I mean, obviously you had a first-person experience. What are your kind of thoughts on all this statewide success they're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It obviously came from legendary coach Jim Ahern. When he got hired in 2009, he just changed the program around. Before that, from 1990 to 2009 or 2008 season, Lansing Catholic made the playoffs one time during that stretch. And when he got hired, he made it first season, made it every season after.
He hasn't missed it since.
Yeah. And, the one biggest thing that he did, and since Lansing Catholic and the community is small enough that it allows for them to do this, is he implemented his playbook from 4th grade all the way through varsity. So the grade above me was the first class to have it from 4th grade to varsity. And you can just tell how much that shows with the way we play. I mean, I had every single position on the offensive line memorized in 5th grade. So from there, I would never had to worry about learning plays. It was just kind of like, it was the back of my hand, pretty much.
I mean,
fun fact, Mike Maruelli, my father, coached at Lansing Catholic Central as the linebackers coach from probably like 01 to 03.
Ooh, so when they sucked.
Tough stretch.
Oh, they were bad. I remember I was like the water boy, ball boy, something. I don't remember. But we went down to Ypsilanti, and that was – or no, Inkster High School. That was interesting. That was definitely interesting.
That was probably before Mikey was even born.
And I was born in 2000. So.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
You're making Kory feel old here.
My bad.
I'm going to keep drinking.
Fellow 30-year-old on the podcast. Dude.
Oh, you mean the guy that can't grow hair on his head?
Hey, I wasn't going to say anything about that, man. Oh, there it is. If you're watching, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, it's all coming out here. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you bring up that not only did Lansing Catholic in that time stretch only make 1 playoff, but they only had 3 winning seasons. So it wasn't even like they were going like 5 or 6 wins. And, until 1999, you could win 7 or 8 games in the 90s and not make the playoffs. They weren't even having winning seasons. So for him to, take them from that, nearly 20-year stretch of not even barely getting winning seasons to not only having winning seasons, making the playoffs, but from 2009 until now, he went to 3 state championships and won 2 of them. So
he won 1. So he coached 3, won 1, and then Jim Baker, the new coach this year, went 1 for 1 so far.
And Jim Baker was part of that old staff. Jim Baker's been there forever.
Yeah, and he runs all the junior Cougar, varsity, everything. He runs the whole football program.
So you grew up in the Lansing Catholic system then, like going to school there. You didn't just go there starting in high school.
Yeah, well, so I went to St. Gerard for
Mhm.
kindergarten through 8th grade, which is one of the like 8 or 9 feeder schools to
Okay.
Lansing Catholic. So, I mean, every year at some point throughout the year, we have like a retreat day where we'd go on a field trip to Lansing Catholic. So, but probably 90% of students at any of those feeder schools ended up going to Lansing Catholic.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
So Lansing Catholic, they have a rather new stadium too, don't they?
Yeah, my sophomore year was the first year with the new stadium. And
I think they were the
I mean,
first area team to put in a turf field
yep,
in the
they
Lansing
were.
in the greater Lansing area. I'm pretty sure they were.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that was great to have. It's so nice to play on. And for even just practices, you never had to worry about anything because where we were practicing before, it was pretty bad. Just tore up, and you have all 3 teams practicing on like a 70-yard field.
At one point, they had a dirt track.
Yeah. That was, I mean, they had that all the way up until my sophomore year. That's what we had, was a dirt track.
That's crazy. Until you
nuts.
were, it was there when you were there. I didn't realize it was there that long.
Well, we didn't play any varsity home games at Lansing Catholic. We played them all at Holt Junior High.
Yeah, I knew that because
Okay.
that I remember seeing on the news. I remember when we were in high school. I remember seeing on the news Lansing Catholic's home games being broadcast from Holt, and I was like, "What? They don't have a home field?" And obviously, yeah, like Brett, your guys' home stadium. I've been there a couple times now. That is a gorgeous facility. It's a very nice facility. Easily,
since we didn't have lights, the freshman team would have to play on Wednesday nights and then JV Thursday because we couldn't get into games on Thursday nights at our home field.
Crazy.
I'm sure that was fun.
That's
for
so
your AD
crazy to
schedule.
think about.
Yeah.
So what did you do on Friday nights then? Did you play Saturday at noon or did you just have an early game?
For varsity,
Yeah.
varsity was the only football team that didn't play at Lansing Catholic.
Oh, okay.
The whole junior high had lights, but the
Okay.
JV and freshman teams would play at Lansing Catholic's field with the dirt track.
That's crazy.
You and Eastern High School had the dirt track. So.
Yeah.
So the next topic I kind of want to get into here, rolling it right along here with Lansing Catholic, your time playing there, something that we talked about with a few guests a couple weeks ago. We had a couple buddies of mine on who played at Hillsdale with me, and now one of them is the head varsity coach at Sturgis High, and then the other one is the defensive coordinator over at Cranbrook Kingswood, which is a private school in the Detroit Catholic League. And we've been kind of having this conversation on the podcast quite a few times about this idea of public versus private school in the state of Michigan. Something unique about Lansing Catholic is you guys don't really have the opportunity to play any area private schools. There are none. There are no other private schools that I can think of in the mid-Michigan area, other than Portland St. Pat's, but they have since moved to 8-man football. I don't know. They were one of the first 8-man football teams. So other than them, there's really no other private schools in the area. Do you feel that you guys noticed, some sort of a difference being a private school playing against pretty much primarily public schools? And then did you notice the difference in the playoffs when you would meet private schools, or do you have any sort of a perspective on that?
Personally, I really don't see, at least with Lansing Catholic, any difference between private and public schools. Pretty much every year, we played Ann Arbor Gabriel Richard.
Yep.
And they're a private school too. Before I got to high school, we played Flint Powers. But
you guys played Saginaw Novell back in the day too, I think, before you were there.
Yep. Yeah. And so I really never saw a difference. I mean, we were good at football. I don't think it was because we were a private school. I think it was just because we had
good
athletes
coaches
at our school. Yeah, great coaching staff, good athletes.
Yeah, good coaching staff helps. And it's funny you mentioned the implementing offense and defensive schemes, X's and O's from the youth all the way up. I feel like that's definitely something Rob Zimmerman has taken and run with over 2 decades at DeWitt. So public school in the area that's doing some similar things.
I guess real quick, just to interrupt. I mean, you talk about the coaching staff, but Lansing Catholic's got some players that come through. I mean, they have 2 guys in the NFL right now. I'm sure there's going to be more on the way. They're definitely, I mean, if a college coach is coming to the Lansing area to recruit, they're going to make a stop at Lansing Catholic no matter what.
For sure.
I mean,
For sure.
It's interesting to see. I mean, they had between Poljan and Rush, I mean, they had a pretty good slew of quarterbacks for 6 years. I think they both started 3 years. So
yeah, they did.
Is that opportunity versus non-opportunity? Lansing school to wealthy Lansing school?
Well, Cooper Rush is from Charlotte. I mean,
Cooper Rush. Yeah, Cooper Rush is from the Charlotte area, I thought.
I have a funny story about Cooper Rush. Our freshman football coach, he's an older guy. His name's Hub Wade. He was also our softball coach. He's in the softball Hall of Fame for coaching. But Cooper's freshman year, he could tell how special Cooper was at quarterback. So during practice, he would put him at defensive end so the varsity coaches wouldn't see him because he didn't want him to get pulled up. He wanted him to be his quarterback.
Oh,
that's hilarious.
That's awesome. Yeah, look
really
at him
good.
Now playing for the
Cowboys. You've heard that story about so many kids, but to actually see it pan out to somebody who played in the league is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And actually played. He's had some great
he started this year.
Yeah, started, that's for sure. Last topic that we're going to kind of get to here for Lansing Catholic, your high school days, and kind of transition us into Northwood. What was it like going from, small high school football? Obviously, Lansing Catholic, you guys pretty consistently have been Division 5, Division 6 playoffs, so smaller enrollment, usually somewhere, between 400 and 500 students, going from a small high school. And obviously Northwood, where you're at now, is a small school as well. Kory, and you can confirm with this, as our fellow co-host Kory is also a Timberwolf. I believe 2,000 undergrads, right? I don't, less. So to go, and even though it's a small school that you're at, you're still playing big time Division II GLIAC football, which is, and we're going to talk about your guys' transition to a new conference here later on. But one of the best conferences, we would argue, in the country for Division II football. What's that experience been like over the last 3 years for you?
Yeah, so I'd say the hardest part when I first got here was definitely the playbook, just because, I played tackle football in 3rd grade for the City League in Lansing, and then 4th grade with Junior Cougar. So I hadn't learned a new playbook since 4th grade, literally. And so when I first got there, that was tough to adjust, and just to learning, I guess, more advanced schemes. My freshman year, I was lucky enough to be in an opportunity where I wasn't on scout team and I was working with the twos the whole season. I didn't dress or play at all that season, but it gave me an opportunity to learn the playbook and, be a part of the offense rather than just being stuck on scout team for the whole season. And then come spring ball, have to learn the playbook. But yeah, I would definitely say playbook stuff was the biggest one. I knew I could do it physically. Obviously there were some days where
I was going to say you didn't have any problems physically.
There was one day during camp that I got beat like a drum the whole day.
Dude, we feel you pain there, man.
Yeah. There was a few bad days throughout the first season, but for the most part, I felt like I belonged, which was a good feeling. Gave me some confidence. I'm sure that helped me along the way. But yeah, definitely playbook was probably the biggest thing.
What was your mindset like? These, Brett went to Grand Valley and played football, and Kory played at Northwood. I played at Hillsdale. So we all had that experience of kind of that mental aspect of going from playing with your boys that you've been around for a long time, and then
strangers.
Yeah, playing with people you've never met. For me personally at Hillsdale, we had 2 captains practices that I attended the summer going in. So I got to meet a couple guys. My freshman roommate I interacted with, on social media a little bit before going in, but freshman year is tough, man. How was your freshman year? I know it was a couple years ago now, but how was that for you?
It definitely is tough at first because not only on the football team, but in the whole school, I only knew 2 guys. I only knew 2 people coming to the school. And one of them was a senior. One of them was in the grade above me. They both played football at Lansing Catholic, went to Northwood. Other than that, I met my roommate at the spring game. I talked to him. And then I just came in not knowing anybody else. For us, during camp, they have all the guys live in the dorms. So in the dorms, I mean, we just had an open door policy, really. We probably a few nights stayed up later than we should have, talking, getting to know each other. But it was definitely probably for the better to not have a couple hours of sleep those few nights, to actually get to know people, feel comfortable with them. I was lucky enough to have a roommate who's my best friend still to this day. He doesn't go to Northwood anymore, but I still talk to him every day, interact with him. So I think I got pretty lucky with that. And he was a quarterback coming in. So, you know, everybody wanted to be friends with him. So we just always left our door open, and people were in and out of our room all day that first semester. So I think that kind of made the transition easy, just being able to put myself in situations to make friendships rather than, you know, being shy and sitting back.
I think that's the biggest part about the freshman year of going to college, man. Especially as a college athlete, is you got to find your guys on the team. I mean, and that's something I think back. We just had a couple weeks ago, again, a couple of my former teammates, and Uday and Chance were much younger than me. My fifth year, I only played with those two guys for 1 year, but it's tough because you come into the team and you got guys like you're 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. And there's guys who are 22 and 23 years old, which, I mean, that's at that age, it's a tremendous
gap,
tremendous difference in terms of, like, you know, culture and like what you're into and your maturity and, you know, your confidence. I feel like it's just, you know, to get a little TMI, the locker room is wild as a freshman. You get into the locker room, man, as a freshman football player, and you're like,
meat checks.
Dude, you're like, what is going on here? I mean, it's a lot different from high school football.
That's when you find out you're in the locker room.
We used to walk into that shower and it was freshman meat checks. Granted, it was a joke, so nobody freak out. But like, it would just be dongs everywhere. But no,
Kory once again touring this podcast to NC-17. Thanks.
Sorry, I've had a lot of Topo Chicos tonight. No, but I'm the one that asked the question because I came from Grand Ledge High School, so Division I high school. We played some pretty big talent. I played in the Michigan All-Star game, so I actually kind of had the opportunity to play some of these, I would say, like some decently high recruited kids. I mean, I played with Jordan Gates, who actually went to Northwood with me, but he was like the Detroit Free Press defensive lineman of the year in the state of Michigan. And Tony Lippett, who played at Michigan State. So like I played against some high caliber kids.
Shit, I forgot you played with Tony Lippett in that game.
Tony Lippett had like 250 yards receiving in the second half, and he solely beat us on his own. But where I'm going is I got an opportunity to play some of these like better kids. So like I didn't feel like when I came into Northwood it was like outrageous. I couldn't imagine like if I played at a smaller high school, like not saying LCC is tiny, but you're not playing like D2, D3, D1 caliber kids weekly. You're playing maybe some D3 kids once in a while. You'll get a one-off D lineman maybe. But like when you go to D2, and I'm sure Vince can agree with this, and Brett can agree, and you can agree, you get hit with like these kids at D2 who should not be D2. My first start, not my first start.
I know exactly. Especially in the GLIAC. We're all GLIAC guys, man. Especially in the GLIAC, you get D1 transfers.
Probably my third or fourth start ever, my redshirt freshman year, was against Ashland. I played against a D tackle who got drafted in the 6th round by the Jaguars. And the dude literally picked me up off the ground and carried me to our quarterback and literally just threw me on the ground and called me a bitch and walked away. And I'm like 18. He actually ended up being older. He was like 27 years old when he got drafted. But
I've told you the story of my first play in college football, right? Against Saginaw Valley.
Yeah.
My first play was a home game. My redshirt freshman year, I got to be on punt return. Redshirt freshman year in Saginaw Valley in a home game, and my job was to run the wall. I had to split the guard in the center because most GLIAC schools run the spread punt, and I had to split them and hit the wall, try and put pressure on the wall. And anyone who plays GLIAC football knows the wall are 3 of their biggest offensive linemen. Saginaw Valley, at least at the time that I was in the GLIAC, had some of the biggest offensive linemen in the GLIAC. My first play in college football, I run this wall. The dude grabs me by the front of my jersey, picks me up as I jump to try and get a hand to the ball. I'm like, I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to tip this punt. He grabs me and straight up throws me down into the ground and goes, "Fuck you," and runs down the field. That was my
very, very similar situation for me. Like the dude carried me to our quarterback.
First play.
And just was like, "You're a bitch." And I was like, "All right, well, here we go." I'm a bitch.
Everybody's got their moment. I know mine vividly. And Mikey, you can share your moment too. I cut out for a minute, so you might have already shared it, but it was the first or second week we were in pads. I was on scout team kick return going against our starting kickoff. And I wasn't in the back. I was in like the second line from the back. So my job was to block the guy, like the guys on the edge, which are typically like some of your fastest, the fastest and like the hardest hitting.
The worst.
There was a guy named Blair Hollis. He was a fifth-year senior. So I was 18. He was probably 23. He's from Orchard Lake St. Mary's, just absolutely chiseled. And I'm running over here backside to go block him. And he absolutely ran through me, blocked me right on the ground, didn't even care to go to the ball. He just stood over me and flexed and squealed and said, "Welcome to Grand Valley, bitch," and then walked back. And I'll never forget my friend Dan. Dan was also on the other side next to me at the same level in the field, and he just helped me up. He goes, "Man, I'm sorry. I should have helped you on that, but I saw him coming and I just bailed."
That's fantastic. Mikey, you got a welcome to college football play for us?
Yeah, there was one time we were doing one-on-ones my freshman year. I think it was like during the season, and I'd won a few in a row. I was kind of starting to feel myself a little bit, and all the other offensive linemen. There's one fifth-year senior who started putting money on my sets because I was like winning a couple in a row. And then probably our best D lineman at the time, the end, I was at right tackle for this rep. I overset him, and he did a spin move back in, and I didn't even touch him. I completely didn't touch him. And he turned around, and he's like, "That's why you don't dress." And I was like,
"Oh man, I got one-on-one stories till the cows come home." The one-on-ones, terrible.
Were you able to stay on your feet at least, or did you kind of twist yourself up and fall over?
I didn't fall over, but there's a stumble.
So at least you saved a little bit of pride. Not falling over helps.
Yeah.
The worst part about all that is everything is captured on tape, and you're just gonna be the joke of film session.
Yeah, that was a huge. I don't know about for you, Mikey or Brett or Kory, but that was a huge difference for me is having practice filmed.
Yeah.
And periods, they're like calling out periods, and you're like, then you got this. I mean, smart kids. I'm not the most intelligent human on earth, but you got these kids who's like, "It's a 2.5 hour practice today. We got 26 periods." And I'm like, "How the fuck did you figure that out?" They're like, 26 times 5 is 2.5. And you're like, "Oh," like halfway through the fucking season.
That was Kory's come to Jesus.
Not a math guy over there, it sounds like.
Not a math guy. Nope.
I before we get too deep, we've already gone pretty deep into the Northwood conversation here. I do want to rewind it just a tad. We talked about you transitioning from going from a small high school to a major D2 conference that does very well, a conference that's very nationally renowned in D2 football. Why Northwood? Just kind of jumping back. I think you had multiple D2 offers from the GLIAC. I know Davenport offered you, I'm pretty sure. Why'd you end up deciding Northwood?
Yeah, so for me, Davenport and Northwood were my only two scholarship offers that I received. During my senior season, I was talking to schools like Saginaw Valley, Grand Valley Ferris, and the first game of the playoffs my senior year, I tore my MCL, and when that happened, everybody stopped talking to me.
Yeah.
And so that was on Halloween. From that day until probably 3 weeks before signing day, I didn't hear from anybody. I probably didn't do a great job reaching out to teams either, but during that period, I didn't even think I was going to play college football. I thought I was just gonna give up on the dream because I wasn't hearing from anybody. And then, like I said, probably 3 weeks before signing day, Davenport contacted me, said that they wanted me to come up for a visit, and So a week and a half before signing day, I went up to Davenport, took a visit. They offered me. And then later that week, I went to Northwood for a visit. They offered me. And so I got offered from Northwood 8 days before signing day. And then the next few days, they were kind of in like a bidding war. One school would up the offer, the next one, the other school would up it a little bit. And one of the big reasons I chose Northwood was coming into my junior year, I went to a camp at Grand Valley, Best in the Midwest. And there, Northwood talked to me, and they were the first school to ever talk to me. So I think I always had that in the back of my mind that, you know, they reached out to me first. They were the first school to kind of have.
They saw something in you first.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, between that and I liked the feel of Northwood's campus more than Davenport's. It kind of felt more like a university, a place where I would enjoy my time off the field as well as on, because I have one coach tell me in the recruiting process, you know, you're going to spend more time off the field than on the field. So you got to find a school that you enjoy being at. So I
absolutely
kind of took that to heart throughout my whole process.
That's really great advice. Yep.
Yeah. I had a PWO from Central and Western, but I just paying for school out of pocket wasn't an option. I needed a scholarship to play. So yeah, I mean, it just at the end of the day, Northwood felt like a place where I could spend a lot of my time. I loved the coaching staff. You know,
it's a really nice campus too. Really nice.
Yeah.
Campus.
It's a French kiss for the campus. It's
a
beautiful campus.
It's in the woods. I mean, people joke the wood, right? But like, it is a gorgeous campus. It's basically, you know, very scenic.
It's secluded. I mean, you drive into it. It's and not to jump in, but like for me, it was you drive into it like you're on campus, and it was just really quiet, and it was a nice place to be.
Yeah, it's very easy to drive through Midland and not even know Northwood's there.
Hey man, I went to Hillsdale. It's the same thing at Hillsdale. There's nothing there except a little tiny campus.
Yeah,
I feel you there, brother. But
the second I got on campus for my visit that day, I mean, I was joking around with coaches. It just seemed like a place I wanted to be. Actually, on that visit, they made me work out, and I hadn't been cleared yet for my MCL. But I didn't want them to know that anything happened, so I just worked out that day and thankfully didn't get hurt.
How far from surgery were you?
Well, I didn't need surgery, so when I
you said MCL. That's right. Okay, the MCL can heal itself. That's right.
Yep.
How far out from the injury were you?
Probably 8 or 9 weeks. I was like 2 weeks away from getting cleared to play basketball.
Still scary though. You don't want to.
Yeah.
It was still wobbly at that point. Like you weren't sure.
Yeah, no, I was not sure about it.
So, Mikey, you said for basketball, did you play basketball at Lansing Catholic as well?
Yep. So
yes, and I watched him his final game. Was it senior day? Oh, man, one of my favorite memories of watching you play basketball. You drilled this guy playing center, drilled a three. Sorry, I'm going to tell this story because it was fantastic. Drilled a three from the top of the key and jogging backwards with the whole Michigan State team because Steven Izzo was on his team. So all of Michigan State's basketball team was in attendance. And then Mikey's jogging backwards and falls over.
Hey,
it was incredible.
All I have to say about this is there's no video evidence of me falling over.
Oh, I wish there was a video. It was
no evidence.
It was so awesome. I loved every moment of it. You just drilled a three and the place went nuts. I mean, the energy in the gym was incredible. All of Michigan State's basketball. I mean, you had Xavier Tillman with his kid there in attendance. Cassius Winston, everyone was there. They're all staying up, going nuts. I mean, what a cool memory, man.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Coach Izzo told me the story of the next day. They had a team meeting in the morning because they had a game the next day. And he said he walked into the team meeting and there were guys like impersonating me falling down, like messing around when he walked in.
One of my favorite stories is when you were, I think it was you, or was it Kevin, your brother Kevin, at Lansing Catholic games eating popcorn in the stadium with Tom Izzo. Watching basketball games. That was Kevin. Yeah, your brother. Yeah. I love that. That's great, man.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. I wrestled my first 3 years of high school, And then after my junior season, they cut the wrestling program. And
Oh shit! I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, so I played basketball from, all the way through 8th grade, and I was always kind of a hooper, but I decided to wrestle football to help me with that. And then,
hooper.
yeah, and then, those 3 years when I wrestled, I always told people if I wanted to make the basketball team, I could. And then senior year when they cut the program, I was like, I might as well try out. Then ended up making the team.
And having one of the greatest plays in Michigan State basketball history, baby.
Yeah.
So kind of rewinding a little bit here with our Northwood conversation. Just want to bring up. So you mentioned obviously you had the knee injury your senior year, right, during playoffs at Lansing Catholic. And then I know you and I talked this last fall. You had, I believe, a meniscus repair going into this past season, right?
Yeah.
So as a result, because of the COVID year and your redshirt freshman year, you still have 4 years of eligibility, correct?
Yeah.
You will be a freshman as a 4th year in 2022 here. Any comments on that? How do you feel about that? That's pretty crazy, man.
It's pretty crazy. I definitely not what I envisioned my college football career to go as, but that's what it is. I've enjoyed the ride so far and definitely itching to play. I haven't worn pads since I think it's November 11th, 2020. I haven't worn pads because I couldn't play in spring ball last year. I couldn't play it all this year because this year when I tore my meniscus, I tore it in the spring, and then I had surgery in May to get it repaired. And for 3 months, I was doing PT for all that. And then one day at PT, I tore it again. And so my second time, we just removed the part that was torn instead of trying to repair it. So then, that put me out for the whole season. But it's definitely been an interesting ride, to say the least. But I've never participated in spring ball before. This year will be my first year. God willing that I stay healthy. But my freshman year got canceled because of COVID. Last year I couldn't do it because I was hurt. And even last fall, it was pretty much just a spring ball is what we did. We didn't play any games in 2020. Near the end of the fall, we practiced 3 days a week. But other than that, we were just doing workouts all fall. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to hopefully suit up this upcoming fall in 2020.
You didn't miss much of spring ball. Spring ball fucking sucks. So.
It's funny.
Missed a lot. He missed a lot, but spring ball sucks.
I was just going to add, in terms of spring ball is rough. It is tough. It's a lot of work, but for me personally, spring ball was when you talked about the playbook earlier, learning the playbook at Northwood and kind of getting involved in their offense. For me at Hillsdale, like learning the defense and feeling like I could play linebacker at Hillsdale, spring ball is what like solidified that for me. It was the time where the starters kind of sat out and all the young guys got to play and get in and get their asses kicked. But it was a learning experience. So I'm happy for you, man. And how's the knee feeling? You ready to go for spring ball?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Actually, that fall, I think we had like 10 or 11 practices in the fall of 2020. And it was actually huge for me because after my freshman year, we got a new OC. Eric Arnold got hired to be our OC after the fall of my freshman year. We didn't have spring ball, so that fall we were implementing his new offense. And kind of for me, the reason I really got recruited is because I can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. So during that fall, for like the month and a half that we practiced, whatever it was, pretty much guys at every single position on the offensive line were in COVID protocols at some point, quarantined. Either they had it or came in close contact. So during that fall, I played all 5 positions on the offensive line for multiple days. And that really helped me just kind of learn the offense and be kind of a utility guy for us.
So you played all 5 positions on the line. I guess, where are you slated to play the spring ball, and maybe what's your favorite position?
I think right now, looking at our roster, because I talked to my coaches about this like last week because I didn't know either. I think we'll probably have me at one of the guards or just both of them, working at both. I think center is probably my favorite because I think it's the easiest. But I also, in our offense, the center makes a lot of the calls.
I was waiting for Kory to say Kory.
Hold on. Let him finish.
And in our offense, the center makes a lot of the calls, and I kind of like to have the control. Like, I would rather have a mistake be my fault than somebody telling me to do the wrong thing because they made the wrong call. Like, I would rather just have it be my fault.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure linemen like to touch the football.
Honestly, I like center because that third grade city league football team I was on, we were trying to do shotgun, and I was the only one who could do a shotgun snap. So my coach, we had 6 coaches. All 6 of them played D1 football. They went to Lansing Sexton High School and then came back and coached.
Wow.
And they made me do 500 shotgun snaps a day at practice.
Oh my
God. Since third grade, I've just been able to do it without even thinking about it. Just because of those practices.
Let me give my sense here.
Kory's going in, baby.
All right. So first we'll start with just talking spring ball really quick. You know you've made it when they don't make you do spring ball. I didn't have to do it twice. No brag, but it was marvelous to just sit there and watch for fucking a week straight. Or for like a month straight. Second off, center is probably the hardest position, not from a banging and clanging perspective, but from a you have to know every position. One thing that I loved with my time at Northwood, so I started a year at right guard, 2 years at center. I was hurt for a year, but I played like a couple games at right guard. My 5th year, I actually played right guard and center because our right guard got hurt. Well, actually, our right tackle got hurt, so our guard moved to tackle, and then I moved out. But from a banging and clanging perspective, center is the easiest. It is the hardest from us with baby whopper hands. I can't hold a wet football. We played GV at home on the grass, and Vince remembers this game. I couldn't hold the football. I had 5 fumbles during that game. I had like 4
or 5 2013?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were playing at Saginaw Valley, and we played a night game. We're all in the hotel, huddled around the laptops because you guys were beating. We were like, you guys taking Grand Valley on the ropes. We're like FGV, come on, Northwood. Yeah.
So I had like 5 towels on my waist, and I was drying my hands off there, drying the balls. I couldn't snap the football because my hands literally couldn't hold it. And that is when I adopted the 2-handed snap at Northwood. So I snapped with 2 hands for like a year. But I would say, I don't know. I would say center is probably the hardest position from like a – do they make you reach the 3-tech? Because we used to have to reach a 3-tech, and if you can't reach a 3-tech, then
it's for like only a couple plays that you have to, and those are I mean, your toughest play every time. But for the most part, I don't know. I think center's easy. That's what if they're letting me choose, put me at center. But just whatever they need, I'll play.
My favorite center story is, and I tweeted this today that I was going to talk about this story. We were playing Tiffin, and they had a nose guard who was like 6'5", 400 pounds. He was the biggest human I've ever seen, but just gelatinous, like couldn't fucking move. And we had Glenn Winston on our team. If anybody doesn't know about Glenn Winston played at Michigan State, and we pulled him from jail practically.
He was kicked off the team and didn't play football for 2 years.
He went to jail. And so anyway, we bring Glenn Winston in. And super good back, like 6 foot, ran probably a 4.5 40, chiseled, 220 pounds.
Played in the league for a couple of years.
So we're playing Tiffin, and we're running a play away from this mammoth human that's just like a piece of jello. And our quarterback walks up to the line, and I'm at center, and this guy's playing like a true zero on me, or he's playing like a shade zero. And our quarterback audibles to the giant human. And it was like a play off the one gap. So I'm sitting here, like he calls the audible. He says red, which gives me the key that, hey, we're running at this guy. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, there's no way I'm going to block this guy. Like, we're running to the one technique, and this huge human who's 400 pounds is sitting here. I'm not going to block him. So we run at him. The guy literally like doesn't move when I block him. He just stands there.
Like hitting a brick wall.
He holds me with one hand, grabs Glenn Winston with the other hand, slams him on the ground, slams me on the ground, like plays blown up in the backfield. I'm like, what the fuck? It was like 3rd and 3 or something stupid. So we get off to the sideline, and Glenn Winston looks me in the face, grabs me by my shoulder pads, and goes, I ain't attacking your manlyhoods, but you need to block better. And I like look at him, and I'm like looking at myself, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, what the fuck did he just say to me? And Glenn goes, I ain't attacking your manlyhoods, but you need to block better. And I go, and you're like, yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Winston, sir. All right. Then he played for the Cleveland Browns the next year. So
what are you supposed to say back to that?
One of my favorite center stories, because it was like, all right, let me just block this.
As many times I've heard that story, it's still pretty funny.
Unbelievable. Never forget it.
All right.
Center's hard. That's the story.
Mikey, we're going to move into the last couple topics here with you. A couple topics left. First, we want to kind of ask you some news this last week. You guys have a wide receivers coach, a Mr. Antoine Mason, who is a Saginaw Valley, apparently played at Saginaw Valley, and is leaving Northwood after coaching at Northwood and heading over to Saginaw Valley. Your rivals, Northwood and Saginaw Valley, play for an axe, right, Kory?
Yep.
Battle of the Axe.
Chop that shit down, baby. Let's go.
Big time rivalry game in the GLIAC. So heading over to your rival at Saginaw Valley. Any thoughts on this move? Obviously, being a current Northwood player, I'm sure you don't want to stir up any controversy or anything, but any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he played there. I know before Northwood, he was just training receivers. He trained a couple NFL guys. I know, including DPJ is one of them, KJ Hamler, a few of those guys. And we were the first university to give him an opportunity, really, to coach. And he did a great job with our wide receivers this past year, or the past 2 years, I suppose. And, it sucks, but it's part of the business too, where I know he told the receivers that he'd applied for the Saginaw job a couple times. He got declined. So, when he said that, it just kind of made it seem like that's a place where he wants to be at, which I can't fault him for being at a school where he wants to coach at. But, it's one of our guys going to Sag, so it's definitely a little bit of fuel in the fire.
Kory, how would that make you feel?
Let's just say I would accidentally run to the sideline and fall into his knee. So
that's
accidentally
messed up, man.
It's messed up.
So kind of wrapping things up here, obviously, the GLIAC, we've kind of talked about this a few times in the podcast, but the GLIAC, notoriously for a long time, one of the kind of greatest Division II football conferences in the country. When Kory and Brett and I were in the GLIAC, they used to have 2 divisions. There was a North and a South division. There was like 14 football schools, 7 teams in each division. Unfortunately, the conference, the GLIAC, has reduced down to 7 total schools starting this season, with Northwood, your current school, moving to the GMAC, Great Midwest Athletic Conference, where my alma mater, Hillsdale, moved 4 or 5 years ago. And actually quite a few schools in the GLIAC have since moved over to that conference. Any thoughts kind of heading into the GMAC after you guys have played in the GLIAC for so long?
Yeah, I think everybody's excited about it. They're play some new teams who we haven't played before. I think at least to like the public, the GMAC doesn't have the notoriety that GLIAC does, but if you look at that conference, there's a lot of good teams in there, and they play, great football in that league too. So we're all excited. We played Tiffin this past year. My freshman year, we played Tiffin, Findlay, and Ashland was still in the GLIAC, so we played them before. Played Hillsdale my freshman year, but schools like Ohio Dominican, Lake Erie, Walsh, Indiana Wesleyan, we haven't played them yet. So we're definitely excited for
all those schools are GLIAC schools to like Vince and I and Brett.
To us, they were all in the GLIAC when we played. These were the GMAC is essentially, other than like 3 schools,
Yeah.
Other than Kentucky Wesleyan and
Let's go in West Virginia.
Alderman Broad or whatever.
I don't think Alderson Broad. Does Alderson Broad still play football? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I hope not.
Yeah.
They were bad.
They were really bad. I know Hillsdale crushed them, but there was essentially the entire GMAC conference other than Kentucky Wesleyan. There might be one other team. The rest of it was all GLIAC schools when we played. I mean, so you're playing pretty much all the teams that used to be a part of the GLIAC, which is crazy. Pretty much the GLIAC has split. I don't know if you've heard this. We were talking to some people recently that there's a lot of rumors flying around right now with the remaining 7 teams, rumors about Grand Valley and Ferris State moving up to FCS, rumors of Wayne State moving up to FCS, Michigan Tech and Northern heading over to the Minnesota Conference. I don't know if you've heard of some of these rumors, but
yeah, I've heard some of it. I know, at least as of right now, Wayne State and Ferris couldn't go D1 because they don't meet some of like the requirements for the stadium and things like that. GV is the only one that actually meets the requirements right now. So really, I mean, whatever they do is probably going to end up being whatever happens to the league. Because if they go,
they'll be the domino.
The league, the league has to disband because there's no way you can't have 5 football teams in a league. But
yeah, it's a good point, a good observation. I mean, if one or two more teams leave, I think it's pretty much done.
Yeah. So I think Grand Valley's really just if they stay, it'll hold it together. If they go, it'll probably end up disbanding. But I'd be surprised if GV within the next 5 years doesn't at least initiate the move to D1.
If you guys think the GLIAC's not given enough money, or what? Like, what's holding us together?
I think that, well, this is my opinion. You guys can give yours after, but at least for the schools that have went to the GMAC, I mean, those are smaller schools, at least enrollment wise.
Yep.
And they're private institutions primarily.
Yep.
And I mean, if Grand Valley leaves, for example, Davenport's just gonna be sitting there with their hands in the air, like, what the heck just happened?
Like they've only been in the league for like 4 or 5 years.
We just joined in 2016, and now we don't have a league. Like, what the heck, you know? And they're just starting to become competitive with Sparky over there. But it's going to be interesting, and you know, football in today's day and age is an ever evolving game at all levels. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Do you feel, Mikey, that this is a positive move for Northwood heading to the GMAC? Do you feel good about it?
Yeah, I do. And I think, you know, not being able to play teams like GV and Ferris just because they're that level you want to be at as a team. You know, I wish we could still find a place for them in the schedule.
Yeah,
we'll see how that all works out. But yeah, I think everybody's excited for the move. It's just new opportunities, and we don't really have a choice but to be excited because it's the reality of things. So
it is what it is. And I mean, from you know, my last year at Hillsdale, we were in the GLIAC, and they were in the GLIAC one more year after I left, 2017. My last year playing was 2015. 2017 was their first year in the GMAC, and there was people were upset. There was a lot of alumni who were very upset about it because Hillsdale was a part of the GLIAC from their inception for like almost 30 years. So there's a lot of people with attachment to that league and the national notoriety that comes with it. But Hillsdale's done very well in that league. And you could chalk it up to some of the teams, you know, maybe not being quite as good. But Hillsdale's volleyball team just went to the Elite Eight. Their football team a couple years ago went 2 rounds into the playoffs. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, I think
it's not a knock on the GMAC.
Yeah, I think if your program's good, your program's good. And, you know, programs like Ferris State and Grand Valley obviously have a leg up and are doing incredibly well and are beating teams consistently in the GLIAC and have been for a long time. So maybe it is time for a team like Grand Valley. Maybe they're ready to move up to a new division. You know, I guess we'll see what happens. But, you know, from me to you, I wish you the absolute best of luck, man. I hope the Northwood Timberwolves you know, find some success in the next hopefully 4 years. I guess I'll add this kind of to get wrapping things up here, but do you see yourself maybe pursuing an MBA or, a GA position down the road? If, you can play another 4 years, something like that in Northwood?
So I definitely think I'll try and get an MBA, play a 5th year for sure. But those 6 and 7 years are still up in the air.
Hey, whatever it takes to get that degree paid for,
hey,
man. That MBA.
If they're paying for it.
If I have one regret, this is one of my biggest regrets in life. Get the MBA. So I came back. I actually graduated with my undergrad in 2014, like at the end of the year. But then they said, okay, you can hold a class and then get a couple minors, or you can get your MBA. And I was like, oh, I'll just hold one class. So my last year at Northwood, I held one of my majors classes and took 2 freshman level like marketing classes to get a marketing minor. And I ended up getting like an advertising minor, a marketing minor, and then my just regular undergrad degree, my management major. And I regret it. Like I should have just got my MBA, but at the same time, I didn't want to be there for 2 more years. So
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
If I had the hair,
married and 500 cats.
That's all you need.
Got to do what you got to do. You got to do what's best for you.
Last question I have for Mikey. Coach Fish.
Yeah.
What do you think of Coach Fish? He's my dog.
I love Coach Fish. That's my guy.
Good.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't really know him too well my freshman year, even a little like first semester of my sophomore year. But then when I got hurt, I could only do upper body stuff. So I'd work out for 30, 45 minutes last, 15 minutes, half hour of the workout. I'd just be chopping it up with him. So I got pretty close with him. And yeah, I love Coach Fish. That's my guy.
Good. Coach Fish is a misunderstood dude. He's a strength coach. I know a lot of the guys I played with and prior to me would kind of dog Coach Fish and maybe dog his it wasn't necessarily Coach Fish. They would dog our workouts. And once you learn how to work out in college, you realize like what he's doing is correct. What he's doing is going to make you better, and then like just buy in and do it.
Yeah.
I love Coach Fish. He's my dude.
I'm sorry to make you feel old again here, Kory, but Coach Fish's son is a sophomore on the baseball team at Northwood here.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about that. What I do know though is that place was a pool the year before I got there.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Kory, when was your last year on campus? Last season?
1985.
December of 14.
Oh, jeez, over 7 years ago. God, you're an old piece of shit.
I am. I'm a piece of shit. I still work out like a piece of shit. Too.
Shit smells better the older it gets.
Well,
it turns hard, white, and crusty.
Before this gets too ridiculous, let's go ahead and start to wrap things up here. Mikey, thanks for coming on, man. Before we let you go, do you have anything you want to plug for anybody listening or watching? Anything you want to plug or share, whether it's Northwood or you personally?
Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity. Actually, I have a NIL deal with Rejuve. It's a company to help you get off caffeine without any of the withdrawals. If you can look it up at rejuve.com, rejuve.com. If you use code McKerr52 at checkout, you can get 10% off your order.
I'll link it. I'll make sure I link it. It'll be linked in the YouTube comments or the YouTube description for the video, and then the podcast stores. It'll be in the description of the episode as well. So that'll be linked.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, all right. We have Mikey McKerr, guest, Lansing Catholic grad, Northwood University offensive lineman. Good luck this next fall, 2022. Looking for you guys to do big things in the GMAC. Thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you having us on. Geez, Pete, I've had too many beers, too many whiskeys.
T-Wolves.
Appreciate you coming on, and we will be back with another guest very soon. And Great Lakes State football. Brett, Kory, Vince, guest Mikey McKerr. Thank you for listening to our interview with Mikey McKerr. Hope you enjoyed our conversation there with him about his time with Lansing Catholic, as well as playing for Northwood University. And we hope we wish for the very best for Northwood, the Timberwolves in the 2022 season. Hope they do very well. Good luck, Mikey and Northwood University this fall. So we're going to kind of finish things up here with our suggestion or recommendation of the week. We've been doing this for a few weeks now. It is Kory's turn once again. A few weeks ago, he recommended Vestal Inn over in Belmont. Kory, what do you got for us this week?
All right, I'm going with a big brand this week. So my wife and I had the opportunity to go out to Grand Haven State Park, check out the pier, all the ice and the snow, super awesome. If you're ever on the west side of the state in the winter, definitely go do it. Kind of a rush. We treated it kind of like just like a adventure day hiking. We hiked out to the end of the pier, even though it was closed because we're rebels like that. But anyway, so on our way through town, we parked to go to Oddside, or no, is it Oddside? Oddside Brewing in Grand Haven, and it was packed. And we were like, "What the hell? Why is it so packed?" Well, they had Winterfest going on in Grand Haven. Winterfest is pretty much a giant beer tent area. They had volleyball. They had a 5K in pajamas, which was kind of cool, and giant beer tent area. And they were selling Topo Chico. So that is my call out for the week. Topo Chico is actually a sparkling seltzer water that the Coca-Cola company is the distribution company and production company for. Kind of cool. I work for Coca-Cola. I took a training on Topo Chico back in probably November, pretty much saying we can't sell in the state of Michigan. So this is my recommendation for the week. Delicious, 4 flavors. I drank a 12-pack tonight. Definitely worth it. I'm not hungover yet. And Vince is cracking up. So no, if you can find it, if you can find it, try it. Lots of flavor, not overly bubbly, doesn't have a really bad like seltzer taste. And as of right now at 11 o'clock at night, I'm not hungover yet. So Topo Chico by the Coca-Cola company. Test it out.
Well, you heard it here first from Kory.
Topo Chico.
Topo Chico. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening here in on episode 11 as a couple of jackasses here talk about football in the state of Michigan and interviewed with Mikey McKerr. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you were watching the video version on YouTube, make sure you check out our audio episodes on the podcast stores. We have episodes on Apple and Spotify, Great Lakes State Football. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review, comment, appreciate it. If you're listening on podcast stores, we have video versions of these episodes on YouTube, Great Lakes State Football. Please subscribe, like, comment, share those videos, appreciate it. Check us out on Twitter, GLSF Ball, BALL. We're on Instagram, Great Lakes State Football. Appreciate all the love and support. And we will be back with an episode next week, episode 12, talking about football in the Great Lakes State. I'm Vince, Kory, Brett.
Kory.
Great Lakes State Football. Go green, go Chargers.
Go blue, go wood.